So good morning, guys. We are going to revise our subject EIS, and before revision, obviously, it is very important that you all have revised at least once or twice EIS subject. Okay. Now I am assuming that you have all have done your revisions, and now we are going to do revision together. So if you have any conceptual difficulties, not understanding, we will try to cover in this today's session. Now we are going to take the revision as per our sequence. If you remember, first we started with the chapter number 3, then chapter number 2, then chapter number 1, then chapter number 4, and then chapter number 5. Okay. Now, in today's session, we are going to cover chapter number 3 and chapter number 2. And tomorrow's session, we will cover chapter number 1, chapter number 4, and chapter number 5. Okay. Now, basically, it's a revision. So I will try to focus on those concepts, those areas which I feel it is always required by the students. Okay. Now, I will recommend all the students that they should keep their notes along with them. So I hope all the students have their notes with their together. And if you have any, suppose, look, first of all, let me complete my topics. After completing chapter number 3, if you have anything you require a specific clarification, then put it in our chat box. Okay. Now, here we are going to start chapter number 3. Just a second. Now, in chapter number 3, we started with a concept called information system, and chapter number 3 is all about information system and its component. But understand why we started chapter number 3 first. The main objective was, first you should understand what is information system. Then you should understand the most important part. When we are going to store data in electronic form, obviously it is vulnerable. Anybody can easily modify, access, or you can know destroy it. Correct. So we need to implement controls. Now, what is control? Controls are any methods, policies, procedures which will help the organization to achieve their objectives. That is what the basic definition of control. But when we talk about the computer, when we talk about the information system, then controls will be those controls which will help to protect our data from unauthorized access, unauthorized disclosure of our data, unauthorized modification of our data. Okay. And then after learning all the different types of control, this chapter will contain the most important part, which is called audit, because basically we are auditors. Correct. So as an auditor, what we do verification. Now always understand what is the difference between financial auditor and system auditor. Look, what you are learning in your regular course, in your audit subject, accounts, everything as a financial part. But in today's world, all the companies are going to put their data, all the companies are going to put their data into systems. Correct. So apart from financial audit, you also need to do system audit. Now when we talk about system audit, what will you do audit? Look, as a system auditor, now today you think like a system auditor. Look, system auditor is not concerned with debit and credit or entities or accounting standards. Okay. They are concerned with whether the system is working correctly or not. That is the most important part. And second, the controls which we have implemented in system to protect the integrity of the data, whether that controls are working or not. And based on those controls, on that functionalities, we will understand whether system is actually working correctly or not. So that audit part will come. Now, what is the best part? Why we are learning controls first? The most important thing, why we are learning control first? Because if you don't know controls, how will you do audit? Correct. Same way, why you learn law? We are auditors. Correct. We should learn audit, but we also learn law subject. Why we? Because until unless we don't know the laws, how will you do the audit? Correct. The same way, first you need to understand controls and then the audit part of controls. Okay. This was the three different segment of this chapter. First, information system and their components, which is nothing but the basic parts of the system. Second, all the different types of controls. And third, how to audit these controls. Okay. Now initially we started with the basic parts, information system. If you remember in your notes diagrams, information system we have divided into two parts. One side was information, another side was system. If you remember, it was like something like this: information system. Correct. What is information? If you remember, so what we get is always known as what we collect is data. Then we process the data, and the output of those process will be known as information. What is system? set of components which are working together, correct? Which will receive the input, then they process the data, correct? And then they will give us output. In today's world, it is practically impossible for any companies to do any entries manually because they have a thousands of transactions. So for processing of those thousands of transactions, they're going to use system like this. Okay. Now, after this, we started the next concept, basic definitions like this. If you see, information system model comprises of following steps: input, process, and output. That was a basic step. But I told you that in between there are always small MCQs. Like look in here. Explain different types of information system. There are four types of information system: manual, paper and pencil. Remember, formal, informal, and computer-based information system. Now, when I say manual, it's paper and pencil. When I say informal, like word to mouth. When I say formal, written procedures, rules and regulations are known as always formal. And computer-based information system when you work on computers, correct? Now, after that, we started with the basic components. So we know that people, hardware, software, database, and network. These are the five basic components of information system. Now, here we have done the briefing of those hardware, software, data, network. If you remember, in network, I also explained you a small diagram. If you remember, I have three offices: Mumbai, Delhi, and Chennai. And I explain you a network which you create within the office is known as local area network. A network which you create to connect different part of the world. When your office is one in Mumbai, another is in Delhi, another is in Chennai, then to connect those our different remote offices, we use WAN, wide area network. But wide area network is nothing but internet, and internet is public network. So whatever data you will exchange over internet, that can be seen by others. So we have decided to secure our data using two concepts. One, intranet, secure network within the organization. When you create intranet, it can be only accessed by your office and your employees. But when you want to do a partnership or exchange of data any with the other partner organization, then we create extranet. If you remember, I told you that intranet and extranet is actually known as VPN, virtual private network. Okay, they are known as virtual private network. Now this VPN already we have discussed in chapter number 4 also, but it's okay. Now, first point was people. We know that anyone who knows how to handle computers, correct? Remember, they can operate hardware, software, networks. They are known as people. And then the second concept we started with hardware. Now, if you remember in hardware, I told you that basic information already you have learned in your school time. Input devices through which we can input the data. Processing devices is nothing but the CPU. Then the storage devices. In storage devices, we have a four different part: internal memory, first processor register, and cache memory. Try to look at the diagram. We have done a motherboard diagram. In motherboard, we have draw a three different parts. One was CPU, then was RAM, and then third was hard disk. Remember? Try to remember motherboard diagram. I'm just drawing a rough diagram in front of you. CPU, RAM, and hard disk. All the information basically stored on hard disk. Hard disk from it will hard disk to it will pass to the RAM, and from RAM to CPU, then CPU to RAM, and again RAM to hard disk. Finally, we store all our data in hard disk. In CPU, we have a two memories. One is our register, and register are the small memory. If you remember, I told you that register are the small memories, correct? So to support the register, we have a cache memory in CPU. This is what we have discussed at the time of our lecture. Registers are very small memory, where it will store very small amount of data. So we need another memory which will store more data so that we can process faster. So for that we have a cache memory. Okay, now apart from that, I already told you that RAM. Now RAM, we have always a limited resource like 2 GB, 4 GB, or 8 GB. So sometimes when the RAM is over occupied, RAM is occupied, or you can say over occupied, so our operating system will create a temporary space in the hard disk, which is known as virtual memory. Virtual memory is not a physical component. Look, the name itself says virtual, imaginary. Operating system will create temporary space on hard disk, and it will be used for the benefit of RAM. That was known as virtual memory. Okay. Now, apart from this, two important concepts here: primary memory and read-only memory. Remember, primary memory is nothing but the part of your computer where we have two types of memory, RAM and ROM. What are the two most important difference between RAM and ROM? So you can remember, if you see, RAM is volatile. Volatile means what? As soon as the power will go, the data which is stored on the RAM will also get lost. And ROM is always non-volatile. Okay, I told you that they can also ask such kind of things in MCQ also, conceptual clarity. Okay, apart from that, you can see RAM, it will actually store our data, the data on which we are working, application on which we are working. But ROM will always store a data for the CPU. Okay. Third difference, if you remember, read as well as write, but ROM, read only memory. The name itself indicates it will only, we can only read, we cannot write. But then who stored the data on ROM? I told you that manufacturer. The fourth point, manufacturer will always store the data on ROM. Okay. Now, next point, we have discussed virtual memory. Secondary memory is nothing but your pen drive, your hard disk, your CD, where you can store the data. But here also I told you that MCQ like this, from the following, which is not the feature of secondary memory. So guys, please remember, MCQ, whatever number of questions you will practice from any sources, whatever number of questions you practice from any sources, doesn't make any difference until unless your conceptual clarity is not there. Okay. Next, output devices. And of course, output devices is nothing but through which we can get the output from the system. Monitors, printers are the common output devices. Then we have also discussed the different types of output, which is a very simple question. After hardware, we started with the next concept called software. Now, what is software? Hardware cannot interact with each other. So what we need is set of instructions which tells the hardware what to do. That is nothing but the software. Now, basically, software will have a two part. One is operating system, another is application software. Operating system is nothing but your main software, which will make all your components, hardware components, to work with each other. And operating system will give us an interface. Interface is nothing but the medium through which user can also interact with the hardware components. Not only that, software like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, this application software also interact with the hardware through operating system. So if you don't have an operating system, you cannot work on your cell phone or on your computer or your iPad, anything else. Understood? So it is the basic requirement. Operating system is the basic requirement. Now, apart from that, we have done a different functions or activities of operating system, like user interface. I told you that right now we are using graphical user interface. Apart from that, memory management, task management, network capability, the network through which we can connect to the other computers is also provided by operating system. The password which you enter is also provided by operating system, correct? The folders which you create to store your files, organize your data is also given by operating system. And apart from this, we have gone for application software. Now, application software is nothing but the software on which we work. Look, operating system will give you the platform to work, but for working, you need application software. Like you want to create documents, then you require Word. You want to go for calculations, then you require Excel. You want to put journal entries, then you require Tally, correct? Now, once your application software is over, which means software part is over, third component, fourth component will come, is nothing but data resources. Now remember, data is nothing but the facts and figures. I told you that there are two main, here I also told you that two important words. People always get confused. Data, sorry, three important words: data, database, and DBMS. Data, my name, Jignesh Chheda, your name is a single data. Okay. But think of the Yashish. When you talk about the Yashish is going to collect your name, your address, your phone number from you, correct? So when Yashish is going to store all the students' information at a one place, all the students' information at one place, now that will be known as database. So database is nothing but the collection of data at a central place, correct? But database will only store the data. How will you organize the data? How will you add more data? How will you retrieve the data? For that, you require application, and that application is known as DBMS. So database management system. DBMS is an application to manage database. Okay, data, single name is data, collection of names, database. An application to manage those database is known as DBMS. Okay, so I hope the concept is very clear to all of you. And here, apart from this concepts, we have also done some important functions. Like for example, if you remember, I have given one table, if you remember, where my name and number was there. In that I have told you that the number of if remember, like this database is a collection of files. I told you in that diagram, if you remember. Then file is a collection of record is a collection of fields, field is a collection of characters, and character is a collection of bits, remember. And I told you that same such kind of things they can also ask in MCQ. They will say simple like this. They will, understand. They will say something like this: database is where we store all the data, and DBMS we use to manage the data, blah blah blah. And then they will write, from the following which statement is not true. Such kind of questions they can frame. So you should remember such kind of concepts. Okay, while teaching also I told you all those things, but I know that our memory is FIFO, first in first out. So it's better to go for revision. I'm going to take almost all the topic one by one, but obviously it will be in brief. It will not be everything in detail. I'm just going to help you to remember those concepts which we have done at the time of our lectures. Okay, now after this, some prominent database models. Now I told you here also, if you remember, the earlier in 1970s, the database model which we have created to store our data was nothing but hierarchical. What you should remember in hierarchical, then you should remember first root node. Okay, try to remember like this: root node, then parent child relationship, then the rule. A parent can have multiple child, but child will always have one parent node. So based on this, one to one, one to many, like this. Try to remember all those things. Look, believe me guys, based on this words what I'm right now saying, they can frame MCQs. Okay, now after this we have done with the network database model. Now here we have totally changed the relationship. If you remember, we have said the first node will be known as owner, and the node which will be joined will be known as member. So first you should remember this. Then all this node will be known as set. These 2 points are over. Then a member can be a member of multiple sets at the same time. So one to one, one to many, many to one, many to many, all types of relationships are possible. Try to remember important words that will help you. Okay, now once we are finished with network, then we went for the most important part, which we actually use is nothing but relational database model, which is nothing but table format. And this words, remember, relations is nothing but table, attributes is nothing but the columns and their headings, and domain is nothing but the constraints in the field. What value we can accept in that field is known as domain. So try to remember such kind of things, guys, because they are going to ask conceptual question based on this MCQ. Then I also told in every table we require a one column which has a unique values, which is known as primary key. Okay, which is known as primary key, unique values. And finally, we have done object oriented database model. When we want to store a different types of data, like for example numbers, text, images, videos in the same table, then we use object oriented database model. Here I already give you the example of Aadhaar card, passport, remember. I already gave you these examples, and I told you to write down all those examples. Object oriented database, mostly this they can ask for 2 marks, or based on MCQ. Okay, so try to remember this thing. Next, once we finish with all the different types of prominent models, the next part is advantages of DBMS, which is very simple. If I am Papi was the keyword to remember all the points, correct? So we will ignore this, you know this, but we'll go for the next part, which is important: big data. Now try to recollect. I told you that the data is growing day by day by day. Remember, I told you that every day thousands, lakhs of data is going to store. But when the data will grow, it will be difficult for the traditional methods to get a useful information from such a big data. Now that is what the concept of big data. Okay, a big data is a data which is very huge, and our traditional methods will not help us. Traditional methods will not help us to get the useful information. Okay, and big data is a problem which world is facing. It is not India is facing or Indian companies, it is world is facing. Okay, but if you able to process, now understand the next highlight what I have done, explain benefits of big data processing. They are not the benefits of big data. Look, big data is a problem. Understand. People don't understand the questions. Explain benefits of big data processing. So if you are able to process big data, then what benefits you will get? Okay. Look, guys, you know English, that is good, but the correct interpretation of English is very good, very important. Okay, so understand this, and based on this, mostly we have discussed here. When you able to process big data, when you are able to process big data, the benefit will be like you can take a faster and good decisions, correct? And based on that, you can sell more products, more services to your customers. This was the crux of this particular part. Okay, now after this, we have gone with the next concept. Now, when the big data will be there, it is always difficult to process huge data, correct? So one of the solution was data warehouse. Now again here, try to remember the diagram which we have done. Try to remember the diagram, everyone. I have given you a diagram that we Hindustan Unilever. Now it's a huge company. It is all over India. Actually, it's a Unilever international company, but let it be. Right now, we will think from the Indian point of view. Hindustan Unilever, correct? FMCG company. Just think of the data which they are collecting every day. So I told you that what they have done, they have created state-wise database like Maharashtra, Gujarat, MP, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, something like this. Okay, and then they store data state-wise, but their head office is in Mumbai. Head office doesn't want all the data; they only want important data. So see that diagram and see that process. We are going to extract the data. We are going to extract the data. Then there is a possibility that the data may be in different format. So first we will transform the data into standardized format and then load that data into data warehouse. So generally data warehouse will be created at head office or near head office, and where only filtered data will come into picture. Now when you are doing this, three important thing. Data warehouse is a place Data warehouse is a place which is always dependent on the main databases. You see the diagram. Your data warehouse is dependent on your Maharashtra database, Gujarat database, Rajasthan database. So always remember, data warehouse will never have active data. It is always called, it uses non-operational data. Non-operational means what? They are not interested into everyday single sales entry. They are always interested into main figures. Second, time variant. Whenever you extract the data from the databases, you should always put date and time. When you put date and time, when you have extracted the data, it will help you for comparisons. And the third, data is standardized. I told you that when you extract the data from the different databases, it has to be in same format. Now these are the three important criteria. Apart from this, there is one very important concept here. If you remember, when you design the data warehouse, then there are two methods, top down and bottom up. Here also I have given you an example. If you remember our textbook, if you first create book and then you divide the book, if you remember this diagram, into chapter, tell me which method it will be. Write down in the chat box. Tell me. If you first create the book and then you divide into chapters, let's see how many are giving. I'm going to give you answer. Okay, I got one answer. Top down, superb, superb. Aman, top down approach. Oh, superb. There are so many people who are answering. Great, guys, great. So when you create book and then chapters, it is called top down. But if you create chapter first, and then you go for creating a book, then it is known as bottom up approach. Okay, so this is what we have done for this concepts. Now after this, there was benefits of data warehouse which you can study, but then next concept is data mining. Now data warehouse, important guys, very important. Data warehouse, when I say data warehouse, is just going to store filtered data, which means data warehouse is not going to give us anything, it is just going to store the filtered data. So what we require, we require techniques which will extract useful information from the data warehouse, and one of the technique is known as data mining. Data mining. Okay, so data mining is a technique to find useful information, useful patterns from the data warehouse. I have given an example of, if you remember, big bazaar. Big bazaar example I have given, how they will come to know how to arrange the product in such a way that their sales will increase. That was a data mining. Okay, and then there was an addition of question, explain the steps involved in data mining process. Now please try to remember, this was in amendment. Okay, yes, earlier syllabus it was not there. May 20 and November 20 they came into syllabus. Okay, and once you finished database, Dbms, data warehouse, data mining, the next important thing is networking. Because now any company, guys, any company, I hope you know that they are not restricted to one physical geographical location. Then multiple offices will be there, correct? So in that case, everyone, there all the offices should be connected with each other. And how will you connect with each other? Through computer networks. Okay, now maybe I got one answer, some or something like this. So okay, it is just a normal answer. So computer network is nothing but the connection of computers and other devices, and that will help us to share resources and information. Now there are two types of network. We have connection oriented, remember, where a fixed path, see the diagram, fixed path from sender to receiver will be created and that path will be followed. Connectionless, there will not be a fixed path. Packets, we divide the message into packets, which is a small part of the original message. We will give them sequence number and they will route from different routes and they will reach the destination. That is what connectionless. Geo, geo network is using connectionless, that they are using LTE network. That is connectionless. And Vodafone, Airtel, earlier they were used connection oriented. Today also your landline use connection oriented approach. Okay, and finally we have discussed basic issues. Whenever you design a network, you need to be careful. You need to understand how your data will reach from one place to another place. Routing, the speed, the volume is known as bandwidth. In case of any problem, how to recover, resilience, and if the traffic will be there, how to solve that traffic, contention. Again, you can see MCQs written over there. Okay, now apart from that, we have done benefits of community network, which you can do on your own. It's very easy. And finally, we have completed our components of information system. Okay, the basic parts. Now we are moving towards the main important part. Because when you store your data in electronic form, obviously it is vulnerable. Anyone can easily access it, modify it. So you need to implement controls. I have given you an example why you put password in your cell phone, why you put password in your laptop, so that any unauthorized person cannot access, correct? Yes or no? So, but what is control? Control means security? No, control is a general word. Anything which helps organizations to achieve their objectives, anything, methods, procedures, policies, which will help management to achieve their objectives is known as controls. Controls should be preventive, detective, and corrective. This was the basic definition of controls. Okay, but obviously when we talk about computers, then control means obviously different types of securities which will be implement to secure our data. Okay, so if you remember the basic things from this particular, here we started with the first part, classification of course control. There are three parts of control: objectives of control, nature of IS resources, and audit function. Okay, preventive is nothing but, remember, preventive, here also they can frame a question based on MCQs concepts. They will give you some example of preventive and they will say, okay, which control it is, preventive, detective, corrective. What is preventive? So obviously the name itself indicates it will prevent errors, omissions, correct, or security or malicious acts from occurring. That is what called preventive control. The next same definition, detective control, detects errors, omissions, or malicious act. But if you see very carefully, in preventive they have not given characteristics, but in detective and corrective, in both they have given characteristics. Look guys, such kind of small things they can ask for 2 marks or 3 marks. Please try to remember. I know you will see that, sir, in front of 50 marks there are a lot of contents, but what I can do, guys, what I can do best is I can give you the guidelines how they can think, how they can frame the questions, and that's why I given you a small questions also. Okay, so here also try to remember examples from MCQ point of view, and main characteristics is from 2 mark or 3 mark point of view. Okay, corrective is nothing but once anything is happened, once anything is detected, then we need to correct those errors, omissions. Correct, we need to make sure that their effect should be minimum on us, and that is what known as corrective control. If you remember, told you here also, business continuity plan is one of the biggest example. Business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan is one of the biggest example of corrective control. When everything fails, look, any control will give us reasonable assurance. Any control will give us reasonable assurance, which means there is a chance of failure. So controls which we have implemented is plan A, preventive and detective. But if it fails, then we should require plan B, which is known as corrective. So disaster recovery, business continuity, this kind of plan are known as corrective controls. Okay. Now, once you finish with your preventive, detective, and corrective, then our nature of IS resources. I told you that this is one of the best part. Correct. This is something, what, general knowledge. Correct, yes or no? Now remember, fire damage, power spikes, water damage. Correct. Then remember the dust, eating is not allowed. So here, believe me, this is least efforts which you will take to remember all such kind of things. Correct. Now even look, one of the thing which always, student ask me, so when there are so many points, how many points we should write? Look, always try to remember, first of all, how many points you need to write out of so many points will always depend on the marks. Now suppose if they ask this fire damage question for 6 marks, now you only tell me how many points you will need to write. So my suggestion will be, try to write maximum points which you know. Try to write maximum point which you know. Understood? Now same question if they ask for 4 mark, only 4 mark, then try to write 6 to 7 points. Understood? So guys, totally it will depend on how many marks they are asking the same question. 4 mark, then different approach. 6 mark, then different approach. Okay. Now I hope fire damage, smoke detectors, all points are very easy. Power spikes are nothing but the power fluctuations, short circuits, and because of those also a fire can occur. But if you remember, I told you that, okay, look, as a human, if electricity is there or not doesn't make any difference to us. Correct. But computers works on electricity, so to give them continuous power, we require power generators, UPS, uninterrupted power supply. So if sudden power failure will occur. But if you have a UPS, you will get time. Your computer will get time to save all your work. Okay. And the most important, if you find any place short circuits are going on, then you should require emergency power off switch, which will disconnect the power. from your facilities, and once the power will be disconnected, short circuit will not happen. Apart from that, water damage, obviously I told you that there are so many different ways, like AC leaks, okay, wall, then the rain, suppose your wall has a pipe, water pipes are going on and the pipes will burst, then might possible that water comes into in the premises. Then what the different solutions which we can do to protect from water damages, like waterproofing, water drainage system properly, then alarm systems which will indicate the water presence, such kind of things which we require. Apart from that, dust, if you know, and is nothing but one form of pollution damage. Now pollution damage here doesn't mean the breathing problems for the computers. Actually, if I say dust, when the dust will accumulate over your motherboard, CPU, obviously it will create a problem for breathing problem for them also, because the heat which they are generating will not go out, and internally, the damage will be there, your processor or motherboard or any different RAM or any circuits. So that's why you should be very careful. In big companies, every 3 months they clean their computers with the blowers. Blower is nothing but something like hair dryer. Okay. Apart from that, prohibition of eating, drinking, that we know. And you should always remember, when you are totally dependent on computers, then you should require power from two different sources, which I also explained at the time of lectures, that you should keep two power sources. Even if this power one failure occurs, then the power from other source will continue and you are able to work non-stop. Okay. Up after environmental control, the next thing is always physical access control. If you remember, I told you one important thing. If you want to protect your data, your system, your resources from human being, then physical access control. If you want to protect your data from technical human being, then logical access control. Remember such kind of explanations. And if you want to protect your data from an act of God, that is known as environmental control. When you talk about physical access control, again, normal, the most important thing is always locks on door. Okay, if you remember C for lock, then numbers will be there, you put number and unlock the door. Or bolting, lock and key. Electronic door lock is nothing but a swiping card, correct? Apart from that, you require pin number. Plastic card, which is nothing but one form of identification, which will identify the person who is using such kind of cards. Okay. Logging, here first time I told you that log, L-O-G, log is nothing but to record. You need to record. Now I told you that in your building also, in your society also, whenever some outsiders will enter, your watchman, your security person will tell them to fill up the log, record that what is your number, to whom you are going, flight number, correct? Same way in commercial offices also, such kind of things will be there. That is what called manual logging. But this is for visitors. If you talk about employees, look, you can see for employees, then electronic logging, where biometric smart card we will use to log, which means record which employee came at what time, which employee went from office at which what time. Okay. Or how many times he, in and out he has done within a day. Such everything will be recorded into electronic logging system. Okay. Now, apart from this, all other video camera, security guards, if you remember, dead man door, bonded personal. Bonded personal is nothing but a contract. We will, whenever we will outsource something, we will, outsource. Whenever we outsource something, we will create a contract with that outsourcing party that if your employee will do anything, any damage to our company, you are liable for those things. Dead man door. Remember dead man door? When you are entering into the office, first door will open. Okay, then you enter. Now the second door will not open until first door will get closed. So if someone is following you, he can only enter, he won't be exit the premises, because second door will not open until unless first door will get closed. So that is what dead man door. Apart from that, non-exposure of sensitive facilities, then a marking should not be there, indicating where we have a computer rooms or important areas. Alarm system, perimeter fencings. Now these are the very simple points, correct? But the most biggest problem which we face is actually nothing but technical human beings. Now they are technically very sound, they know how to use computers very well. Then even look, it's not about outsiders, our own employees. I always told you that, remember one of the very famous quote I always say, uh, Ramayan, Vibhushan, remember? Now Ram Bhagwan was not knowing not knowing anything about Lanka. It was Vibhushan who told everything Ram Bhagwan about the Lanka and how to defeat the Ravan. So it is our always remember the company never afraid of the outsiders, competitors. They are always afraid about their own employees first because employees knows the things better. So in that case, we need to implement strong logical access control. Now I told you that in logical access control, there are three parts. First, what are the different ways through which anyone can compromise our data? Then who do all those things? And then the third part was controls. In environmental and physical access control, directly controls they have given. They have not given anything briefing. But in logical access control, little bit big topic, correct? So first, you can see our first question is technical exposures. Remember bomb, a piece of bad code. When it is get activated, it will start damaging. Salami and rounding down. See the diagram. Small fraction, then rounding down. Big rounding, which means salami. 0.37. I have given the example 0.37. Then I have divided. I'm just giving you another time. Okay. 0.37. Then I give you an example. If you convert 0.37 into 0.35 lower side, this is called rounding down. But again, in 0.37, there are two part. If you remember, if you convert 30, slice it like this, 37, 7 slice it, or 00, totally conversion, then it is known as salami. This diagram I have already given in our lecture. Okay. Apart from that, trapdoor is nothing but giving our own address to the hackers, unauthorized person. Like for example, visiting pawn sites. Okay, visiting pawn sites are very dangerous because look, when anyone can hack your system when they have an IP address of your system, correct? But when you visit pawn sites, you don't know, but facts says maximum pawn sites are created by hackers. So when you visit the pawn sites, actually you are giving your own address to them. Please come to my home, get it whatever you want, take it whatever you want. So that is what known as trapdoor. Okay. Now, apart from this, data diddling. Diddling means nothing but changing of data before entering. Suppose I have spent 5,000 rupees, but I will pass the entry of 3,000 only. This is pure human fraud. That is what called data diddling. Worms, remember worms, as they will enter into the system, they will start multiply itself. Christmas card, remember one of the worst malicious code, it is known as Trojan horse. Christmas card, I told you that it was detected in IBM system, IBM company system. It was detected in their email systems. Once you type Christmas, Merry Christmas, and this Christmas card will get activated, it will black your screen. It will start drawing your Christmas card in front of your screen. But it then after that, you will not able to do anything on your system. And not only that, it will not activate that Christmas tree on your system. It will activate the Christmas tree on all other systems which are connected on the network at that moment of time. And then to get out of this, you need to restart. But when you restart the system, which means the data which you have not saved will bye bye. Okay. Now spoofing is nothing but when hackers try to hack your system, they will never give you your IP, their IP address. They will use someone else's IP address. That is what known as spoofing. Okay. Now next, if you have seen one movie, look, I don't know the name of movie in uh, South language, but I see Setmax. Okay, in Setmax, the name of that movie is The Return of Abhimanyu. Yes, that is what the name of movie, Return of Abhimanyu. I don't know the exact. You just try to search on YouTube, The Return of Abhimanyu, and then try to search in your language what is the name of that movie. Believe me, that movie is totally on the hacking. How hackers are hacking your data. Okay, that is what called spoofing, hiding your identity, and your identity is nothing but what? IP address. Okay. Now after this, we have done asynchronous attack. That is, asynchronous means hacking your data in between the transmissions. One of the ways is piggybacking. What you send and what the receiver will receive will not be same. In between, the data will get hacked and it will get modified. Same concept in subversive threat. Sometimes students always ask me, sir, what is the difference between piggybacking and subversive threat? Both are same concepts. Both are same concepts. The only difference is methods. Methods in piggybacking is different. Method in subversive threat is different. Okay. Wiretapping is nothing but listening to someone else's communication. That is what called wiretapping. Now this was the methods through which someone can hack your data. Then who do all those things? Hackers, our own employees, former employees, then professional hackers, competitors, foreigners, vendors, all those things. But after this, our control will start. Correct? Now, I told you that first control which we always keep is always keep on what? Users. Users registration, their privilege management, their password management, the most important thing. So first, user access management and user responsibilities are very easy. But after that, network access control, very important. Correct? Because today in this pandemic, everyone is working from home. Correct? How they can work from home? Because using internet, using network, they can access their company's data. But now understand, when you are at home, you are not in company, which means you can misuse the company's data. It is also possible. So for that, correct, for that, not only for employees but also to protect from the outsiders, we need to implement network access control. This pandemic is perfect example for this network access control. We should enforce firewall. We should enforce policy on use of network services, that you can only access those services which is as per your responsibility. We should segregate our network. We should use virtual private network, intranet or extranet, so that in other internet users cannot access our network. Correct? We should implement username and password. We should implement encryptions, so that our data, even if it will get modified, sorry, it will get hacked, no one can actually see what data we have sent. And then there is most important thing, callback device. Identify the correct users, that our own users are actually going to access the data. That is what callback device means. Okay. But we know that any controls will give us reasonable security. Correct? Not the absolute security. So if network access control fails, the next level of control which we are going to implement is operating system access control. Now when you talk about operating system access control, simple. Operating system means what? Implementing username and passwords. Correct? Implementing so verifying username and passwords, forcing users to set strong passwords. Then you should not provide access to sensitive features settings to the system users. Then how can you set access privilege restrictions? Remember access privilege. So we have done a diagram at three places: access token, access control list, and the third one was discretionary access control. Here we have done the diagram also. Access token, remember, users and what they can access. Access control list is nothing but name of files and what user can access. Remember, name of files is the main resources and how user access the file. And the third, discretionary, where admin cannot give power to everyone. So what admin will do, it will delegate their powers to the respected head of department, and then head of department will decide how their internal department employees can access the data. That is what discretionary, as per their wish they can set the power for their own team members. Okay. So these are some important words in operating system access control. Rest were very easy. Duress alarm, if you remember duress alarm, in case of emergency, how will you call for help? How will you activate the security? That is called duress alarms. Okay. Terminal timeout. What is terminal timeout? So if you don't access your terminal for 15-20 minutes, automatically log off should be there. Limitation of connection time. Employee cannot access any systems beyond the working time. Like for example, bank. So bank timing is 9 to 5. The employee cannot access before 9 o'clock and after 5 o'clock. That is what limitation of connection time. But look, apart from operating system, you should also implement securities at application level, like which users can access which features. That is what information access restriction. If you think that your system has important data, isolate from the other computers. The most important thing, you should always log all the events, especially those events which deviates from the standards. Correct? Because it will help you to find any future fraud. That is what called event logging. Whenever your users are accessing the system from outside the company, you should always monitor their use, what they are accessing, how they are accessing. And every system which are on the network should have same timings, so we can relate the events which are occurring on the network. That is what called clock synchronization. I have given you one example here also of the robbery. Before starting of robbery, all the people who are involved in robbery, they will match their watch, because they need to sync their actions, they need to relate the different events at the same time, so they will always sync their watches first. Okay. And finally, mobile computing. When you allow your employees to get their laptops, their smart devices inside the company, then you should also put some security so that the data which is on their laptops, on their smart devices, should not get lost. Okay. So here we have completed physical, logical, and environmental controls, correct? And now we are going to go for next, managerial controls. Now, if you remember, audit function. Now, why this name is audit function? Because it is not possible for auditor to audit all the controls. So what we have done, we have divided the controls based on two parts. One is managerial, another is application. Okay. Now, just 2 minutes, wait for 1 minute. I just okay. So why it is audit function? So because of auditors, look, you know that the limitation of audit, I hope you know that it is next to impossible that we can cover everything. Same concept here applies, same concepts. It is not possible for auditor to audit all the controls. So in that case, what we do is we have divided the controls into two parts, so we can try to cover maximum controls. One is managerial, another is application. But I told you that managerial control and the topic which is in audit part, audit of managerial controls, you should always learn together, read together. That I told you at the time of teaching also. If you remember, at the time of teaching, I have not taught managerial control first. I taught application control, then we went for the audit part. And then when the audit of managerial control topic came, that time I taught this part. And I told you always try to read both the part together, correct? Now, when I talk about managerial controls, here obviously we think from the management point of view. Look, management, board of directors always understand it is not possible for them that they can continuously involved into system development, into systems maintenance part. So what they will do, because they need to do business, understand, they are going to take the decisions about how to grow business. So what they do, they start the project and then they implement certain controls. So controls will make sure that the project will go as per the decided one. Like suppose we want to take or develop the system, then planning, their implementation, their operations, then maintenance, a different controls will be set for this thing, and controls will make sure everything go as per plan. Now you can see here, first is top management information system, where you need to check planning, steering committee, then organizing the resources, then you need to motivate your employees, and you need to make sure that whatever you thought, everything is going as per plan. And if it's nothing going as per plan, then you need to create further controls, correct, corrective actions you need to take. System development, when you start developing the system, it is not possible to develop the system in one go. There are phases. First, whenever users will demand that new system should come, management will not say yes. Management will appoint an expert. An expert will review the request, and if they find that a problem is there in the system and new system should get into the company, then only management will say okay, proceed. That is what first system authorization activities. Okay. Then we will always ask users what you want. Users will say their demands, that will convert it into technical specifications. But here auditor's role will be more important, because auditor will also say how the system should be developed from the financial point of view, accounting point of view, what are the different controls should be implemented. So auditor's role will come. And obviously once the system is developed, obviously a testing will be done, correct? Now here two types of testing. I told you that one testing will be performed by vendor itself. Okay, and once vendor performed his testing, then what we will do, we will not accept it. Correct? We have decided that we will also test. So client will test. That is called user testing. Okay, now after this, the next concept which we have done was programming management. If we have decided not to buy software but to develop the software, which software? Application software. Correct? So in that case, programming management controls will come. Now here you need to remember sequence, like first planning, then control, design, coding, then testing and maintenance, MCQ point of view. Apart from that, here also basic points are there. There is no some difficult points are there, like design. So you should go for structured or object oriented. Structure is a traditional model of designing. Object oriented is a new form of designing. When you go for coding, you need to understand how will you code, how will you integrate the different modules. Then once your modules are integrated, you should also understand about testing. Now here also I told you they can ask based on concept MCQ. They can also ask MCQ. Correct? Single module unit test, multiple modules integration test, the whole system together, whole of program testing. But once system is tested, we start implementing, but after that maintenance will come into the picture. Normal problems, repair maintenance, as per user changes, adaptive maintenance. And when you want to create a good system, you want to improve the system, then perfective maintenance will come into the picture. Apart from that, data resource management, quality assurance management, small topics which you can do on your own, security managements, and finally operational management control. Now here simple things are there. There is no such revision is required for such kind of topics. Okay, you can just go through it and you will understand. My voice is coming, guys? Vidhi, Shweta, anyone please just okay, thank you. So after this, the next point, application controls. Now understand, when I talk about application, you should understand here we are going to thoroughly check the application, how application works. Now first thing which you are going to check, okay, thank you very much guys for your reply. So first thing, only authorized people can access. That is what boundary controls we keep. Now authorized people, obviously system cannot work on their own. It is work all based on input. So correct input should be given to the system, because wrong input will have a cascading effects. Wrong input, wrong communication, wrong processing, wrong updates into database, and wrong update into database, wrong output. So it is always important to implement good controls at input level. After input, we communicate the data to the other systems. So communication control. Once the data will reach to the actual system or server, processing control. Once the processing is done, it should be updated into database. So database control. And finally, we create outputs from the database. So output controls. So there are total 6 categories of controls in application control. Okay, boundary controls are one of the easiest. Cryptography is nothing but encryption decryption concept, which we have already learned. Here also there are 3 methods. You can see transposition, substitution, and product cipher. I have explained you with example. Transposition is nothing but changing the position. Substitution is nothing but sending something else instead of something else. For example, if you remember the method which we have done, suppose if I want to send A, but I will not send A, I will send B instead of A. Remember, this is what substitution method. And they can also ask such kind of concept based on MCQ. So try to remember, please, MCQ here also. Most 99% I have told all those things in the lectures and you have marked also, but in revision also I'm telling you. Apart from this, identification cards, PIN number, password, biometric, all those things we know. Now input controls are one of the important controls. There are 4 parts of input. Source document. Source document is nothing but something called invoices. You should design your invoices very carefully so that you can restrict the fraud in your organizations. That is what called source document. Okay. Data coding controls. If you remember coding, here coding is nothing but number. When you enter the number, you should be make sure that you should not do any mistakes. Transcription and transposition errors. Remember, addition, truncation. When you are adding more characters, addition. When you are adding less characters, truncation. When you add something else instead of something else, substitution. I have given you the entire diagram for this. Transposition is nothing but the changing of flipping of digits, flipping. That is what called transposition. But here also I told you that they have just given what errors. They have not given the solution. Okay, the solution for this was check digit, but I told you that as it is not given in the book in your study material, no need to think also. Okay, now we'll proceed with the next part, batch control. Oh, if you remember batch control, I have given you here also one table. Batch control, when we don't process individual invoices, we collect all the invoices together, and then you collect on Monday, collect on Tuesday, collect on Wednesday, but you enter all the data on Saturday, now that is called batch processing. But look, the data which is collected on Monday and data is going to enter into the system on Saturday, there is a gap from Monday to Saturday. There is a chances of fraud errors between this time, Monday to Saturday. So for that, when you are entering the data on Saturday, how will you come to know that the data which you have collected on Monday, same data you are entering on the Saturday? So to verify the integrity of data on Saturday, when you are entering the data, we have a different types of control, like financial total of all the invoice bills. Remember that diagram. That's why I told you that keep a book with you, diagrams with you. Financial total is nothing but the total of financial amounts. Okay, counting the number of documents in your batch, which will also help you to find the frauds. And the most important, total of unusual numeric field like invoice numbers, roll number, order numbers, unusual fields, but they are numeric, so total it. Because the person who's going to do the fraud, he will try to compensate either in financial total or in document count. He will never think that we have also totaled this unusual field. Okay, that is what has total. Now here I will also suggest guys, okay, they can frame MCQ, case study based MCQ based on this concepts, that which control you will use in such situation. Okay, so here also write down MCQ. Okay, now after this, validation controls are nothing but, again, remember that table, employee number, name, address, my contact number, date. Now when you go for column wise, that is called field interrogation. When you go row wise, that is called record interrogation. And when you try to check the entire table, it is called file interrogation. Here you need to verify the data which you have filled, like field interrogation. Here limit check, the data should be within a predefined limits. Data should be, if the field is numeric, then characters is not allowed. Picture check. Okay, predefined codes are there, and if you don't use those codes, valid check codes. Record interrogation, try to verify the record entire data with the physical invoices, check their sequence to find out any missing entries. That is what record interrogation. Okay, now once your validation control is over, we'll go for communication controls. But here, believe me, communication control, they have not given everything in detail. They are just saying that during the communication from one device to another device, there are certain errors exist, like parts will fail, correct, like communication cable or the hub, router, switches. So you require a good quality parts, devices, that is physical component. Line error. Okay, so now what they are saying, data sent and data received may not be same. So then you need to detect the errors and then you need to correct the errors. Flow control. Now right now what I'm speaking and what you are receiving, now understand, if I speak fast, it is not possible for my students, my dear students, you all, that you can grasp everything, because my speaking speed and your receiving speed may not be same. In that case, what will happen? Data loss will happen. So what we're supposed to do, I should speak in such a at such a speed which you can receive. So sender speed and receiver speed should match. That is what called flow control. Correct? Link control. The errors which can happen like line error, flow control on LAN, such kind of error can also happen on WAN, internet. So for that we have a link controls. And finally, channel access control. Sometime disputes will be there, disputes among the computers to access the communication channel. Now there is one method earlier we used earlier now, right now we don't use this method, where all the computers are connected with a single cable. You can see here. So there is only one communication channel, one single cable. Now all these devices want to communicate at the same time. What will happen? Traffic, contention, data loss. So we need to avoid such situation. And for those things, we require channel access control, where multiple computers want to try to access a shared resources, common resources at the same time. Fights will be there. So we need to avoid those fights. And for that, channel access controls will come into the picture. Okay. Now, once you finish this, the next thing is processing control. One of the little bit tough part, but in that also we have a four part: processor control, real memory, virtual memory, which we know that real memory is nothing but RAM, virtual memory, we also know that, and the data processing control. Okay, four parts. Little technical part is actually this processor control. Processor is nothing but CPU, which has a three parts, correct? Control unit. I told you that right now it is not in your syllabus, but for your general knowledge, I'm just giving you this. Okay. Now, first, what they are saying, processor might have problems because of manufacturing defects, design errors. So for that, first, error detection, error correction, simple. But guys, understand, when you go for Google, now Google server will not have one processor. Thousands of processors will be there in their server. Server is a big computer which actually process all of data, all of our requests. So it will not have one processor, it will have thousands of processors. So we need to audit how many processors are there, they're working. That is also part of system audit. Okay. Timing control. Here also I have given you one proper example. Why our PC hangs? Sometimes when you are opening an application and it comes not responding. Why? Because sometimes your application will get stuck and it will not allow other programs to use CPU. In such case, we require timing control through which we can forcefully close the application. We can means operating system forcefully close the application. I have given the diagram also in conceptual clarity also. And finally, component replication. There is a possibility that when you are using thousands of processors, all processors will work on the different part of instructions. Understood? So if any one processor fails, any one processor, it may fail the entire task. So we require backup processor. Now look at the diagram for this also, component replication. I have given the diagram also, that if any processor fails, we have a backup processor which will take over the work of failed processor. So when the backup processor will take over the work, our entire process will go smooth. Process will not fail. Even processor is failed, it is not working, but work of that processor will be taken by some another processor. That is what component replication. Then if you know real memory, virtual memory, same concepts are here again. And finally data processing, again here they have not given anything else, extra points. Okay, so here what was more complicated and important was processor control. So that what I have discussed. After this, database control. Now if you remember, in database control, here we have two different types of control. One is update, another is report. In update, look at your notes, we have given two tables, master table and transaction table. Remember, first master table and transaction table should be arranged on a same field, sequence check. Remember, second, you need to understand all records should be updated in master and in transaction. If you remember, if some dispute occurs during update, then that transaction should be shifted to temporary suspense account. 11 standard concept accounts. If you don't get the amount, shift to the suspense account. And finally, if you have a one master record and multiple transactions, remember 103 in your diagram, 103, and you have a multiple transactions 103. So all transactions should be updated on 103 master in a correct order. Diagrams, look at the diagrams very well, which I have given you. You will understand my concepts very well. Okay. Now, after this, we went for the report controls, where print run to run control, which I have given a bank passbook. Bank passbook will help you to understand whether all the transactions updated correctly in your account or not. Time to time, we should print suspense account entries to see that whether we have solved all the errors in the suspense account. Sometimes some data are constant, like interest rate, discount rate, correct? So guys, these are known as standing data. These rates will not change frequently. These rates are not changing frequently. So in that case, what is more important, guys? In that case, what is more important? We should check time to time our interest rate, discounts are calculated appropriately or not. That is what standing data. And finally, you should always have a backup of your database. So in case of any disaster, you can recover your data. That is what recovery control. And finally, you will get output controls. Now, output controls are very simple. So I think you can manage on your own. Okay. So here we have completed all the different types of control. Correct? Yes or no? Now take a 2 minute break, only 2 minutes. Just relax your mind because we have completed the controls. I just want to drink water because my throat has a little problem. Okay, so 2 minutes small break. Don't go anywhere. Only 2 minutes. Okay. Okay. So now we will start with our audit part. Okay. Now what is information system auditing? Look again, before going for auditing, first you need to understand information system auditing. What is audit? Audit is nothing but verification, simplest meaning, correct? But guys, here we are not going to do audit what you are learning in your audit subject, because you are learning financial audit, and what I'm going to teach you here is system audit. In system audit, I have given you two important statements in this topic. If you remember, try to see two important statements I have given in this topic when I was starting this topic. In information system audit, we always first check whether information system has all the features which is required by the organization and they are working or not. And second, all the controls which are necessary to protect the data of information system, it is there or not, and they are working as intended. So we are going to audit security controls, systems, features in information system auditing. So don't mix your audit subject with our information system auditing. Okay. Now, first, obviously, objectives of IS audit. So integrity is nothing but we need to check our data is not modified. Asset safeguarding, we need to check our assets are protected from unauthorized access. System effectiveness means all the features which we required into the system, whether they are there or not. And efficiency means whether system is working perfectly, performance of the system. Okay. Now look, right now I have a OnePlus device, OnePlus, okay, but I don't think to change my OnePlus because OnePlus 6, okay, not even 7 or 8, OnePlus 6, but I'm not thinking because the performance is intact. What I'm expecting from the system, if that performance is I'm not getting, then it is worthless. Okay, that is what efficiency. Now, then the next topic, obviously, need for information system audit. So why we should audit? To check whether our first point, to check whether our systems are working correctly or not. Because if the system are not working correctly, the data which is generated is also unreliable, correct? Then the value of hardware, software, and the most important, human being. They are the most dangerous person. To verify hardware, software is not unauthorized modified by our humans, correct? The data which we are collecting from the users should remain private, privacy. Okay. If computer have a, suppose if computer is not processing the data correctly, the output will also not correct, and what will happen, the incorrect decision will happen. Our important data, if it will get lost, like for example for dairy milk, Cadbury, the formula of creating a dairy milk, if it will get lost, what will happen? Company's existence will be in danger. That is what called data loss. And we need to check computer abuse. No person can unauthorized access or modify our data. That is what known as computer abuse. Okay, so these are some of the reasons why we should go for audit of information system. But the problem is, you know what, in today's practical world, all the companies which are using the system, they have a huge data, correct? And you also know that when the data are huge, it is practically impossible to start audit after 31st March. Because if you start after 31st March, then you find errors, then you rectify the errors, the cost will increase, the time will require more. So there is a concept called concurrent or continuous audit, where at the beginning of the year, when you start writing your data, when you start entering your data into your system, parallelly will verify the data integrity, the controls integrity of the system, or functions integrity of the system parallelly. Every Now it will depend on the auditors how frequently he want to visit or how frequently he want to verify, correct? But the problem is, when there are thousands of data, it is practically impossible for auditors to verify all those transactions controls manually. So we have developed certain tools which will help us, certain tools, methods, which will help us to find out whether the system, their features, their controls working correct or not on a continuous basis, on a continuous basis. Okay. Now, first we have done snapshot. If you remember the diagram of snapshot, what it will do, so it will trace whenever you pass any transaction, it will trace where that transaction got processed, and it will trace the images of that processing, and based on that images we will verify that transaction has processed at every place where it's supposed to process. That is what snapshot. Integrated test facility. Now I have given you an example of Tally. If you remember, in Tally we will create a dummy ledgers, and then we will pass dummy entries to verify the integrity of the data features. That was integrated test facility, creating dummy ledgers. That was the main feature, dummy. Scarf. Now if you remember, Scarf was nothing but a log file, log. Remember log, log, record. But look, what if we want to record? Do we want to record everything which is happening in our system? No, we always want to record what is deviates from the standard, deviates from the standard, that we want to record, correct? So that will be recorded by Scarf. Next, CIS. Remember CIS? Now I'm just again helping you to understand the CIS. Now when user, okay, he's using Dbms to update data in database. But look guys, we need to verify the update which is done by user is actually not unauthorized. It should be correct. So what we have done, we have created CIS in between. Now CIS is like a security guard. So before transaction, okay, will pass to database, it will be verified by CIS. If CIS thinks transaction will have an adverse effect on database, S means simulation. So it will create dummy atmosphere, dummy environment of database, and it will run the transaction in that dummy database. If everything is correct, go to database. But if CIS feels everything is not correct, then stop that transaction and record in exceptional transaction log file. And as an auditor, you need to verify this log. Okay, as an auditor, you need to verify this log file whose name it is there, and then you start interrogating. That was a CIS concept. I hope if you have not remembered that time, now you actually remember the concept. Okay. And finally, audit hoax, that I told you, that insurance companies, there are chances of modification of data, modification of nominees in the insurance record. So they have created a concept called audit hoax. After entering the data first time into system, after that, if someone will modify the data, then a small tag will appear next to the data that this data got modified. As an auditor, you need to verify all those tag entries, and you need to interrogate whether those tag entries are actual done on based on the evidence and or the sorry based on the evidence they have modified or not. And if you don't have any evidence regarding that modification, then get that and person who has done that entry, and of course then interrogate that person. Okay. Now, next thing we have done was audit trail. Audit trail is nothing but a log file. Again, there are two types of audit trail, but this topic we have done in the application audit trails, the last topic, if you remember. Look here also I told you learn at the end of the chapter. Basically, audit trail is nothing but it will help you to detect unauthorized access. It will help you to find out what is going wrong by the users, which is called personal accountability. And the most important, it will help you to find the reasons of the failure. When the system was failed, what were the reasons of that failure, and based on that we will make sure that in the future such kind of event should not occur. Like in flight, when the flight crash, they always search for what? Black box. Because black box is one form of log file which will record all the last moment communications, all the sensors readings, everything it is get recorded. So based on that they will come to know what was the reason of failure, and they will try to improve for the future that such kind of event should not occur in the future. Okay, so this was your audit trail. And after this you can see the topic of environmental control, physical access control, logical access control will start. Auditing environmental control. So what you have learned in environmental controls, now we need to just do audit. Okay, so here the topics are damn easy. You can see power conditioning is nothing but UPS, backup power, heating, ventilation, water detection, fire detections, cleanliness, dust cleanliness. We need to check all the controls are working or not. Same way for physical security, you can see site and marking. You need to check the site whether it is not in a close circumstance of volcano, dams, rivers, lakes, canals. Apart from that, you can see physical barriers, walls, doors, bollards. I have given you the explanation of all those things. Surveillance, dog, key card system is nothing but the smart card systems. These are very simple. But when it comes to the again logical access control, there also logical access control was big. Here also logical access control is little bit big. Now you can see first is user access control. I told you that whenever we talk about security, always users, our own employees, they are vibhushan. Okay, they are vibhushan, they know everything about us. So we need to always implement control for them first, and we need to also audit also those controls first when we start auditing of controls. Okay, now here you can see authentication, access violations. Now what is authentication? We need to check that is there any area exists where without authentication anyone can go. Access violation, if someone is doing something wrong, whether it is getting recorded or not. User account lockout, if you are inputting password 3 times wrong, whether your accounts will automatically get locked like we do in net banking, ATM. Do we have an intrusion, unauthorized person detection system? Do we have a system of dormant accounts? Dormant means the username and password which we have not used in so long. They are more dangerous. If same username and password will be shared by multiple person, then it will be difficult to find who has done the malicious act. Because suppose if one in one department every user use the same username and password, how will you detect who has done the malicious act? Then system accounts, who is responsible for managing the admin accounts? Because admin is also a human being, and if you are a human being you are bound to make a mistakes. So we should also record all the activities of admin also. Okay, auditing password management, how passwords are set, created, modified, all those things will come here. User access provisioning, this topic there are so many students who sometimes they don't understand the meaning. Read slowly. Auditing user access. User access is nothing but privilege which we give to the user. Provisioning, provisioning means assigning, how we assign powers, privilege to the users. Once you will understand the heading, you will understand the points. In company, no user can get direct powers. Whenever they want to access, whenever they want to access beyond their regular powers, they need to request. And there has to be a process for requesting the power. There has to be a process for approving that request. There has to be a process for new employees provisioning. There has to be a process for segregation of duties, how two users will get segregated. That all will come in user access provisioning system. Okay. And the final bye bye process, whenever users will leave the company, or we remove the employee from the company, then we should also make sure that as an auditor, company is following that termination process very well or not. Because if they are not following the termination process properly, like for example, once the user say I am going, their power should be reduced. Once he leave the company, their username and password should get deleted from the system, so they cannot access afterwards. Such kind of process if you don't follow, then your employee can access your data even he is not in the company, which is very dangerous for the company. Okay. Apart from user access log is nothing but records, the records which we are keeping in our system regarding those things, like where we are keeping, central place or multiple place, how the logs are protected, it should not get altered in any manner. What is the duration to review the log, like every 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and what are the duration for log we are going to keep, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. All those things will come in user access log. Then finally, investigative procedures. Now here, obviously the most important part, if some security breach will happen in the company, then how company is handling those security breach, what are the investigation was going on, documentations, who was leading that investigations, all those aspects will come here. And the most important, internet point of presence. Guys, please do this topic very well. What is the role of company on internet? When you search on in Google about the company, what aspect comes? When you search on social sites about the employees, what they are writing for the companies, you need to also check some OLX, quicker, that your employee are not selling companies assets on OLX and quicker. Apart from that, there should not be a similar name, like for example, guys, you don't believe, but I have my website. Okay, www.jigneshchheda.com. But if someone is creating www.jigneshchheda.co.in, then understand, as a student, it is possible that you will not go on my site and you will go on that co.in. My website is .com, but someone created a similar website .co.in, which is dangerous. You might divert, your audience might divert on that other websites, and they might get trapped into some fraud. And student will think that they are paying to me, or they are discussing with me, or they are communicating with Jignesh Chheda, but actually they are doing someone with someone else only. And apart from that, internet policies, that also you need to verify. Now here, auditing of logical access control will get complete, and the next part you can see managerial controls and their audit trails. But guys, I told you that managerial controls, if you know very well, managerial controls and audit trails will be damn easy for you. Always remember, never ever read this topic individually. Always read this topic along with managerial control. Okay, that is the best for you to understand and complete this topic into 5 to 10 minutes. Yes, 5 to 10 minutes you will complete this topic. Okay, now, so guys, in this topic everything is same, only audit aspect is there, so don't worry. Now application controls and their audit trails, important topic. Okay, I told you that there are two types of audit trails, and I have already given you the diagram also. If you remember, audit trails, one is accounting audit trails. Okay, another is operational audit trails. Two types of audit trails. Now whenever you are going to perform any activity, I told you that whenever input, boundary, communication, these are the main activities. Okay, just implementing control is not important. Understand very well the meaning of audit trail. Okay, implementing control is not important. Along with control, you should always record the various events which are occurring along with that control. Record, yes. So whatever events which are occurring at a time of implementing those controls or using those controls. I'm just giving an example, so don't worry. Those events will be recorded in accounting audit trail. Here accounting doesn't mean accounts. Here accounting means who is responsible, who is accountable. That is what accounting audit trail means. But the things which is related like resources use, errors, or any other information related to these events will record it in operational audit trail. So along with every control, there will be two audit trails, accounting and operational. If and you have done this topic, then you know that every control will have this two aspect. I'm just giving an example. Look, implementing username and password is not sufficient. Understand? Implementing username and password like boundary control. Password is nothing but the example of boundary control. Just understand very well which user are coming at what time, what he is accessing, from which computer he is accessing. We don't know. We are just saying, oh, we have implemented username and password, so unauthorized user will not able to access. But unauthorized user will not able to access, but your authorized users, your own employees, what they are doing in your system, how will you come to know? They might be Vibhushan. Understand? So in that case, we need to record each and everything what they are doing, right from boundary, right from what input they are putting, control, communication, what they are doing, processing, database, and finally output. So in all those topics, you need to remember two aspects. One, accounting audit trail, another is operational audit trail. Much of content are here straightforward. You just need to remember what the contents are saying. Okay, like suppose boundary controls are damn easy, but look, input control. Now what they are saying, just entering the data into the system is not only sufficient. Okay, just see, look at the aspect, identity of the person or organization who was source of data, from where the data is coming, who is entering the data, what was the time and data that it was captured, which system or which device we have used to capture those data. Look at the details which we required. Why we require such details? So that in the future, if some fraud will occur, we will come to know the exact source of that fraud through these details. Understood? Now same way, operational audit trail, same way. Okay, you can see how much time it took to enter the data, the number of read errors when you are using optical, like sorry, not fiber optic, optical scanning device means like what you can say in Big Bazaar, DMart, remember gun, laser gun, they are known as optical scanning device. Number of typing mistakes. Okay, how many times we are writing the commands, but actually now we don't use command language. I told you that we are using graphical user interface, tuck tuck tuck, or typing or icons on all those things. And you can see right now I'm writing using stylus. So stylus is more fast or mouse is more fast, that you also need to record, and you need to take a judgment on those things. Now apart from this, when I talk about communication control, so you can see unique identifier of source node, which means nothing but IP address of sender, unique identifier of a person who is sending the data. We should also record which person is sending data through which computer to which computer. Everything we need to record. Time and data, data was dispatched, data was received, everything we need to record. Now apart from that, during transmission, now in communication control, operational audit trail is little bit technical. Some of the places you will find something are very technical. What you're supposed to do, try to remember maximum number of points which you can remember at that moment. Don't use your brain only. Always remember, as a student, 70% you can remember everything conceptually, but 30% you need to accept. It is there, accept it and just go ahead. You cannot think like this 100% I want everything conceptual. Then you need to skip your attempt, then next attempt you need to skip, then only you will be prepared for the attempt. So you need to skip 2 attempts, then you will prepare for conceptual clarity, and then you can attempt paper. Okay, so relax. Okay, always in any subject, whether it is accounts, whether it is tax, whether it is costing, it is next to impossible that you will remember everything conceptually. one or some aspect you will say accept it. If such is, if this adjustment will come, do it like this. If this will come, this formula you should write like this. Okay, relax. Now after this communication, you will get finally processing control. Now processing control, so I told you that simple, remember, I give you the simple explanation for the points. You should just remember those things, nothing else. Okay, the important in operational audit trail, what you should remember, you can see log on hardware consumption and log on software consumption. Even if you try to remember this two word and write down something else in that, it is okay. Log of hardware, just try to write down CPU or secondary storage. Try to remember here compiler software. Compiler is nothing but which will convert your English statements into binary. That is what called compilers. Okay, whenever you find that the statements are very technical, try to remember important words and frame your own statements. It's okay, don't worry. Okay, and then you will get database control and finally output control. Database control is nothing but repetition of what we have learned in database. Like whenever you update, you should always put time and date so we can compare. Attach before image and after image of the data. Here also I have given example. Again, I'm showing you. Suppose my account balance is 5,000. Okay, and I'm making a deposit of 1,000. So obviously 5,000 plus 1,000, my amount will be 6,000. So after this transaction updated, you should understand 5,000 was before image and 6,000 is after image. So before processing it was 5,000 and after processing it is 6,000. This is what before image, after image. And whenever you modify the data, every time you need to take before image and after image. Every time. I have given you one diagram also in database control. Okay, and after this you will get output control, which is damn simple. There is no technical point in output control. Once you complete this part, my dear student, next we'll start organizational structure. Here this was the last lecture. If you remember, I told you that here most of the thing what you need to remember is MCQ point of view. If you remember, like for example, executive management. So if you see here, CIO, CTO, CSO, CISO, they have the main name is given, topmost leader in IT organization. Now you can see overall technology strategy he decide. If you remember, responsible for all aspect of security, information security, physical security. Chief Information Security Officer responsible for data related security. Now mostly they will give internal explanations as question, and this where will be in your MCQ ABCD. So you need to identify who is responsible, the responsibility given in the question. Now recently in your RTP, if you have seen the RTP video also which I have given in our group, they have asked question on this database analyst. And can you see this green line? That green line was in question. Yes, that green line was in question. Okay, so here there is no technical or conceptual point. Here just you should remember the position, job description means position, and their duties, what they are supposed to do. And this will help you for mostly MCQ. Okay, so with this, we are finishing our chapter number 3. So I tried my best to cover all the aspect of chapter number 3. Now take 10 minutes break, 10 minutes, only 10 minutes. Have your food, tea, coffee, whatever you want to have. Right now 9:41 is going on. Exactly 9. Suppose so I'm giving 15 minutes break. Okay, don't worry, 15. But please come back in 15 minutes. Have your tea, nashta, breakfast, everything, whatever you want. And after that, we'll start with chapter number 2. Again, I'm going to cover whole chapter number 2. Master, non-master. Remember front end, back end, application, install, web-based, cloud-based, data analytics, everything. XBRL, ERP, everything I'm going to cover. Okay. So please take a 15 minutes break. Don't go anyway. Come back. This 1 hour, again, the 1 hour lectures will help you to revise the entire chapter number 2. Okay. So take 15 minutes break. Please come back on 9:55.